This is so sad. So sad.
And the bodies are stacked up in body bags everywhere. And to do the kinds of cruelty is just takes your breath away. And I would like to remind the people watching right now, so many more people, they killed their own people than during the 12-day war with Israel. Significantly less loss of life in the 12-day war with Israel, because Israel had very specific kinds of goals to and now you have Iranians killing their own people, thousands and thousands of them. So now that video is absolutely, and I'm sure there's even much more happening. So, here we are now, what Israel and what our country accomplished after striking the nuclear facilities. So now I'm open to this idea that there could be a catalyst or some kinds of engagement or an action, from our nation could put thing over the top and break this awful regime.
Well, I mean, we're talking about real blood, real death in real time, and real images of blood and gore and death, and it's just unbelievable. Not images that you can never erase from your mind. Reports now anywhere between 12 and 20,000 dead Iranians, many others injured. Morgues are packed and hospitals are packed, Senator. When the president says help is on the way, the only help I can think of that would be effective would be military help. That to me seems to be the only solution that would stop the Iranians from killing their own people and slaughtering them the way they are.
Yeah, well, I mean, sanctions and other things really haven't worked. What really worked with Iran was the nuclear facilities. They had 800 pounds of 90% enriched uranium, and they were absolutely committed to build a nuclear bomb. People seem to forget that, and how that changed the entire dynamic in the Middle East after they destroyed their nuclear facilities. And now that helped trigger this kinds of unrest right now in Iran. That could actually create a new nation with these protests. That's why I remain open to these kinds of strikes. And as you pointed out, and I think the president, everyone said, there is not a boots on the ground thing. This is not Iraq. Nothing is like this, what happened in Iraq. This is us standing with those protesters. And as that video that you shared, they are quite literally slaughtering thousands and thousands of them and executing their own people in the street. So for me, I think that's why I'm going to remain open to this, because I absolutely was the right thing that happened when we struck the nuclear facilities. As the only Democrat that agreed with that, just because it's a different party.
It's ridiculous that, we don't have the moral clarity on an issue like this. We see the absolute murder. We're all the people that was shouting, free Palestine. The Trump doctrine is very clear, and you've been supportive of it, and you are the only Democrat that has been. But there are certain criteria. Is this in America's best interest? I believe it is. It's the #1 state sponsor of terror. A surgical strike is very different than boots on the ground. It's very different than a forever war. It won't be that. Why aren't there other Democrats supporting you? And I know you probably get sick of that question, and I don't blame you.
I really don't. I mean, it's disappointing, honestly. I mean, I was fully supportive of Israel through that. And then that really kinds of isolated me within my party now. And then I was calling, we have to destroy these nuclear facilities. If Iran acquires that nuclear bomb, that changes the much dramatic there. And now Iran's making these kinds of threat. I mean, remember also Israel, they created air supremacy within 2 days. Iran really's capabilities are severely limited at this point. And now they're in a death spiral with all these protests. Why wouldn't one be ready to provide the kind of a bump to push it, to finally break this regime? And now they're so desperate, They are quite literally just executing thousands of their own citizens.
And I think every American needs to ask themselves a question. If America can help and stop the slaughter of, in this case, what may be tens of thousands of people, should America Does it have the moral authority and the moral justification and right to do good when we have that capability? Senator Fetterman, thank you. We appreciate you being on the show. All right, back at home,
I have no idea. Apparently nothing. I mean, I think all that's going to maybe come out of this is some sort of written report. But when the deputy AG says no civil rights abuses that we'll be investigating, there's not even a criminal statute that's on the table. And I want to be clear about this. Todd Blanche knows this is wrong. And I know that Todd Blanche knows this is wrong because we were both raised and trained as prosecutors in the same building, the SDNY, at the same time by the same people. This is prosecution 101. You investigate first and decide later based on that investigation. To see a prosecutor, the #2 prosecutor in the Justice Department, come out 6 days after with apparently no investigation being done other than whatever we can see publicly and declare definitively that it's over is absolutely backwards. It's the opposite of how Todd Blanche was taught. It's the opposite of how any prosecutor in the history of DOJ was being taught.
As someone who worked inside a U.S. attorney's office, when 6 people from your office resign, I mean, what is the impact of that? I mean, what does that say about how bad things are, I guess, is the question.
And for perspective, Caitlin, that office, the U.S. Attorney's Office in Minnesota, has a grand total of 70 federal prosecutors. So 6 plus the #2 person, that's 10% of your office right there. That's not just a protest resignation. That's a mutiny. That's a group of established career, nonpartisan professionals saying we can't abide by this. And look, prosecutors disagree on tactical questions all the time. Should we subpoena this person? Should we go to the grand jury? Should we take this plea? On and on. Nobody resigns over that. You only resign when you get to a point where you can't withstand something ethically or on principle. And I think when you see 6 people go at once, they're sending us a very clear message. Look, they're operating in a system where the end result has already been preordained by the president and the deputy attorney general. They're looking at a federal investigation that has excluded the state when ordinarily you would want to include the state investigators for reasons that are sort of incomprehensible. And further, our reporting is that this investigation is not even focused on the actions of the ICE agent at the scene, but rather on the personal affiliations of the deceased, Renee Good, and apparently her spouse as well. That is completely irrelevant to the key issue here of was there liability with this shooting. So I understand where these people are coming from in resigning. It's an incredibly difficult position, and I applaud them for their courage and integrity in doing it.
Eli Honig, as always, thank you for joining us. Wanted to get your analysis on what is happening.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. It's so sad.
It not. And by the way, the lowest trade deficit since what, 2009?
Yeah, the trade deficit's been remarkable. We've got housing moving in the right direction, to your point. Mortgage rates are coming down. They don't even have to get into the fours, really. We're going to start to see a massive pickup. Let's not forget, this year...
Scene, they wouldn't let a doctor see her. There's so much cruelty that even followed the shooting. We've seen, you and I have talked about this a lot, just how change can take time, right? We've seen the polling, we've seen people coming out in the streets in Washington, D.C. and all across the country. And we've seen people really bravely capture what they're seeing in Minneapolis and cities across the country. Do you feel like
Come in near a neighborhood near you. Prepare for it. Get ready. The sting will stung. Going down the same characteristics. What happened right before our Civil War over here?
Place in terms of gun violence prevention.
Couldn't nobody get along? Wouldn't nobody compromise?
Assault weapons were banned. But when it was time to renew that, there was a bit of a split within our own party. Not everyone is for banning assault weapons. And then somebody walked into a school, Columbine. And then somebody walked into another school, Sandy Hook. And then someone walked into another school, Marjory Stoneman Douglas, and murdered innocent people. And those were turning and inflection points for our own party in this nation. And now more than 90% of this country is for common sense gun reform. So this, I believe, is a turning point where people are waking up saying this is something that has gone way too far. And I think we as Democrats really do have to see this moment and say this is that moment where people are seeing themselves represented in a tragedy that they maybe thought was another person's issue, was an immigrant's issue, was a person's issue in Minneapolis, in Minnesota, in a different state. But I think people seeing that video are disturbed, the Democrats and Republicans alike, and I think it's really important that we answer the call that's right in front of us.
And they're seeing people dragged from their cars, as we just showed in the
Yeah.
days after that, terrorize a school. It's continued. I know you said that there
It's
shouldn't be
contagious.
support for DHS funding. The DHS funding bill, their
It's
budget-
contagious.
this budget has gone up by 200 to 300%. It's completely crazy. They're overfunded, overempowered.
More than the Marines.
More than the Marines,
more than the
is an
Marines.
important reminder. What do those changes look like? What does change look like that you feel would be enough or would be satisfying?
Many different things. I mean, I can start by saying they should not allowed to be masked. They're the only law enforcement agency that's allowed to go around our communities, terrorize our people, and have masks on with no accountability. That's just one simple thing, right? The other thing is they need to have warrants to be able to take people the way they're doing. And obviously we need to clarify this in the law. And that's something that's very important as well. Those are just two, but we're putting out an entire list as the Congressional Progressive Caucus.
Supposed to be guaranteed due process.
Now, are they going to adopt all of them? No. We know they're not. I mean, this is an administration that has no problem with people walking into elementary schools and killing kids.
This is not the pleasure of the president anymore, or the officers appointed over you. I don't think he's got a case. I think he's going to lose his rank and his pay, which is very, very suitable, I think, a suitable penalty. And you know what? Stop talking so much about how you're in the military, for crying out loud. It's always this guy in the military. He never stops. And look at that mannequin in the back. Is that his uniform? I've got a uniform. I think it's in my attic. All right? And you know what? He's not the only one who took the oath. I took the oath. I took the same oath. You don't hear me bragging about it all the time or saying I could blow off the president of the United States. And in fact, there's my dad. He actually gave me the oath. My mom, that was a tremendous day. My cousin Timmy, he gave me my first salute. And everybody in this picture served in the military. These are my uncles. My Uncle Ken, he was in the Marines. He died in the late 1990s. This is my Uncle Donald. His funeral was today, actually, the age of 91. I'll be talking more about him later in the week. A great Marine. And Uncle Leonard, he died a few years ago in his 90s, and he served in China with the United States Marine Corps. And there's my family and my dad.
It's getting dicey. Getting very dicey.
About the numbers, did he not know about it? I do an investigation, and I do it quietly until I get to the point where I can say something. But the chairman says, no, you're attacking the independence of the Federal Reserve. That's not what we're doing. We're doing our job. And I think the sad part about this is no one is above the law, nor should anyone think that they have the right to be above the law, Sean. And I'm curious to those who claim, oh my gosh, this is a terrible thing, even in our own party. What do you suggest? Are there certain people that you cannot investigate? Are there certain people that we look the other way and throw complaints in the drawer? That's not the America that I grew up in, Sean.
Just to be clear, Judge, you gave them an opportunity to just talk to you and say, what's going on here? Why are these massive cost overruns? They didn't
Three
get back to you.
times.
That's what happened.
He
Three times.
didn't respond.
Right.
Instead, he comes out with this crazy video.
If you write me one time and I don't respond, I'm dead.
It's sad. It's coming unwound. Coming unwound.
And she joins me here at the table after a quick break.
Coming unwound. Sure is. Sad. Super, super sad.
They start killing thousands of people, and now you're telling me about hanging. We'll see how that works out for them. It's not going to work out good.
My source tonight is the Republican Senator Markwayne Mullin of Oklahoma, who's a member of the Armed Services Committee. And thank you for being here. You heard the president talking about taking strong action, making Iran pay a price for what's happening. What do you think that price should look like?
Well, what we're wanting to do is see the Iranian people get back their country. You know, if you go back in history, I was born in 1977. In 1977, Iran was more Western than maybe the United States. They had more women elected to public office. They had more women in the workforce than even the United States. You saw that change with the overthrow of Shah in 1979, and now women get stoned for teaching their girls arithmetic. Or
Ayatollah Khomeini.
what we want is the Iranian people to literally have
Ayatollah Khomeini.
what that could possibly look like is, first of all, let's get connectivity again. We've seen Elon is putting up Starlink. We'll be able to see what's actually happening in Iran rather than going dark. And then two, you got to remember during the 12-day war, Caitlin, the president made it very clear to the Iranian regime, we know where you're at, but we're choosing not to hit you. If we knew where they were at that point, we know where they're at today. We know what their air defense system is. We were able to get past their air defense system not too long ago. We can do it again. It's the same. It's the same system, by the way, that Venezuela had too, and we were able to get through that system. So if we're able to put the Iranian leadership in hiding or remove them.
So it sounds like you'd support U.S. military strikes.
Well, I would support removing the regime that's killing their own people. Reports are coming out right now that the number could be 12,000 to 20,000.
Okay, so you're in favor of taking out the Iranian regime?
I am at this point. They're murdering their citizens. Now, I want to just use a factual number that is in everybody's mind. If that number is true, it's 12,000 to 20,000. Let's just use the 12,000 people that they're saying that's already been killed that we know of. That's 4 times the amount of people that was killed on 9/11. And that's happening at this murderous regime. And what we want to do is give the Iranian people an opportunity to get their country back.
Yeah, we don't even know the full scale of it, obviously. One question that has been raised, though, is the president said if they kill...
So sad.
What are you doing up there?
Oh, I'm just posting the number of visitors to the homes.com.
It's all fake. It's all lies. Those guys lie before Congress. You see the, what's the word they like to use? In fact, that empathy that they had for the January 6 cops. Look at all this stuff that the ICE guys are going through, right? Pump up the volume. Please. Gotta have some volume. Some of this is more intense than others, but let's just stay with it for a bit. Very hard to do your job when you got all these people all over the place. And there was plenty of pushing and shoving. And worse and worse. Isn't this a threat to democracy? I could make that case. This is happening all over the country. And there's a hell of a lot worse video than this. You've probably seen it by now. Let's see. And these protesters, they love to mouth off and say horrible, disgusting things to these ICE officers. Listen to some of this.
How's your cardio? You guys should be so ashamed of yourself. What would your mom think?
You way off federal property now, boys. You ain't got no authority here. Knock it off.
Just kicking like a bad dog. Yet on January 6th, you know, the cops killed somebody. They killed Ashley Babbitt. More on her in a moment.
For themselves.
Can I get your take on the news that we're getting out of Minnesota tonight as well? Because I know you talked about this with Jake on Sunday. You believe that the shooting was justified in terms
Absolutely.
of how the officer acted. And we heard from Todd Blanche, the Deputy Attorney General, saying tonight, basically, there is no criminal investigation, civil rights investigation into what happened to Renee Good. Do you think that they should at least be investigating it?
If they're investigating anything, they need to be investigating the paid protesters and who's paying them to obstruct federal officers from doing their job. This was obviously obstructing the federal agents from doing their job. She obviously accelerated towards the agent that was in front of her. She was obviously given orders. This is not, debatable. It's all on video out there. She was given direct orders to exit the vehicle, and she decided to punch the gas and hit a federal officer. At that time, that vehicle becomes a weapon of lethal force, and the officer has the right to use lethal force. And so it's very cut and dry.
Fill her full of holes. It's one thing to shoot her once, but another thing to just sit there and bang, bang, bang. 3 shots. Besides that, the steering wheel was to the right, probably cut a good 45 degrees, 40 to 45 degrees. She didn't try to take the wheel and turn it to the left and purposely trying to run over that officer. That officer purposely got in front of that vehicle, knowing good and well that his training says you cannot stop an automobile with your body. So he violated proper protocol himself by getting in front, or partially getting in front of the side of the vehicle. Besides that, whenever the vehicle took off, for him to shoot her 3 times, that's cold-blooded. That ain't a crime of passion in shooting somebody once. But shoot somebody 3 times and you've been on the force for 10 years, that's cold-blooded. And for people to, look at her. She's smiling. She ain't got a mean bone in her body.
Does it mean it criminal offense? If we start looking at this, because what you're looking for is if it was criminal. If you start looking at this, what difference does it matter what bullet killed her? Are we doubting the fact that she accepted?
You got to look at intent. That's how they base capital punishment of death. Did you intend to kill that person? Yes. Not only did he intend to kill her, he intended to put 2 more bullets in her chest to be sure that she was dead. If that ain't intent, I don't know what is. You know, they want to talk about a double strike pertaining to how we done a boat over in Venezuela. That was a triple strike. And we're talking about a trained officer? That was not an act of passion, my friends. That was like a vindictive act. Besides that, she did not purposely try to turn the wheel so that she could do bodily harm to that officer. She was trying to escape and get out of that area. Yeah, she should had taken the orders toward getting out of the vehicle. But does that validate towards killing her? Man, oh man, I don't, this is bad. I'm telling you, this is a bad, bad deal. Whenever you start seeing this stuff on TV and people are siding with the unjust part versus the just part, it's bad.
Because it makes inflation go up, it causes prices to go up overall because of the kind of uncertainty if politicians are driving it. So that's what this fight is really about. And Donald Trump has known it since the day he got into office. He said he was going to fire Jerome Powell. Shoot, he'd been in office about an hour and a half. He tried to fire Lisa Cook, another member of the Federal Reserve. He has openly said he will only name a Federal Reserve chair who will do exactly what Donald Trump wants. In other words, a sock puppet. So Donald Trump is trying to get his hands on the control so that he can use interest rates in order to try to persuade people that their economic lives are better than they are. But there's a hard reality out there. And that reality, Jen, is people are very worried about trying to build some economic security. They're worried and they're getting angry at Donald Trump.
We are seeing that around the country, and the sugar high nature and who cares what happens over the long term feels so indicative of his governing. Let me ask you, I can always ask you about a million of things, which is one of the reasons I love talking to you. You are a former law professor. One of the things we started the show just talking about, of course, what's happening in Minneapolis and the resignation today of 6 people from the Civil Rights Division, of 6 people from the U.S. Attorney's Office in Minnesota. So many people, a huge percentage of the country has watched these videos and feels horrified and deeply sickened by it. What is the path to accountability? Is there a path to accountability legally for this officer?
Absolutely. Now look, we fortunately still have good people in Minnesota at the state level. Keith Ellison, the Attorney General, is terrific. And boy, if anyone is going to get in there and get a hold of whatever information he can and pursue justice on behalf of the people of Minnesota, it will be Keith Ellison. And of course, he's backed up by both Governor Walz and by the Lieutenant Governor, Peggy Flanagan, who, by the way, is running for Senate. Just terrific. A real fighter for working families, and also somebody who doesn't take corporate PAC money. So you got a lot of good people who are engaged. So we've got a real possibility of getting some justice at the state level. Also remember, we just keep pushing at the federal level because that's what we have to do. Nationally, show up, peaceful protests, keep this issue alive. Keep videotaping and keep showing those videos all across the country to keep pushing back on this administration. You know, look, right now, we have an ICE that's just out of control. And it is our job, both in the Senate, in the House, but also people all across this country, to push back and say, we got to get some constraints in place.
Yeah. What does that look like to you? I mean, there are some Democrats in both the House and Senate are laboring for the party to, of course, refuse to fund the government unless Republicans agree to rein ICE's ballooning. But
you got people right now that are lathering at the mouth and wanting to get involved in this violence. And they're so sick that it really don't matter what side that they're on. They just want to get involved in this violence. They want to be involved. They're lathering at the mouth. It's a very, very sick environment that prior presidential administrations has helped to lead the American people down this endless road that now we're at a damned if you do and damned if you don't state, to the degree that now we're seeing this presidency going way too gung-ho, I think, and not calming these agents down a little bit towards going at this in more of a decent, professional way. And now it's a Wild Wild West show. This is the exact same formula that happened right before the uprising of the Civil War, and I still believe that there's people in America that are pushing for that to occur. The bad thing about it, if that does escalate into that, after we get to the point that we're basically killing ourselves off and we become so weakened, then our true enemy, which will either be China or Russia or some other country, will just come in and basically annihilate us and take us over. Because we'll be so weakened at that point, we won't even be able to put up a decent fight because we've been fighting one another for so long. We're going down the very path that the Luciferian Lucifer wants us to go down, which is the author of confusion, out to steal, kill, and destroy.
You can see back here, this was a speedway that was burned to the ground and looted and has never been rebuilt. And actually, I was going to do the shot from over there, but I had to tell your team right before this started that they've now set it on fire again. So I can't do the shot from over there. But I've never been to a place, not even Portland, which was surprising, where I feel genuinely like I am constantly in danger and the police are just going to tell me to bugger off if I ask them to save me from somebody that is trying to do severe harm to me. I mean, it's terrifying. It's terrifying to be a conservative in Minneapolis right now, and that's exactly how Tim Walz and the mayor out here want it to be.
I give you a lot of credit, honestly, because people wouldn't know wouldn't know the truth if not for brave people like you. As always, thanks for being with us. Please stay safe out there. All right, and coming up tonight, high stakes in D.C., where the Supreme Court heard arguments in what will be a landmark case. 2 cases that could decide the future of biological men in women's sports. Riley Gaines, West Virginia AG, John McCuskey. React. That's straight ahead.
It's really sad that we've reached this pinnacle point in the year 2026, January the 13th, that now we're seeing chaos erupt in every way imaginable. 1 step forwards and 2 steps back pertaining to a civilized society. One step forward and 2 steps back. Wow. Good luck to all of us. Shalom.